Everyone. Yes, this week got something slightly different for you. This is it's an interview that I found by the Process Church from their magazine. It's the sex issue of their magazine this was in, which was published in the 60s. I couldn't find the exact year this was published, but I'm sure that information's available somewhere. I'll have to look. And it's an interview with Jimmy Savile by the Process Church, and I immediately saw this and thought of there's a Maori Terry style Ultimate Evil conspiracy theory about Jimmy Savile, the Yorkshire Ripper, and another serial killer we had called Peter Tobin. And I went and tried to look for that conspiracy theory, but couldn't find it. And I did find some more information because Savile was a suspect in the Yorkshire Ripper case, and I'll show you why in a minute. And also, there's slightly more information about him being involved in some kind of ring. There's other accounts of women now who are saying that they were abused in some kind of ritual fashion by him. So yeah, that was the and if you're watching this on playback, there'll be chapters in the description, so if you just want to skip straight to the interview, you can skip straight to that. But I'm just going to talk to the audience for a minute before I start. Okay, right. Yeah, that music, the people are called Weary Pines, they call themselves, and the song's just called Satanic Panic. Sorry, just looking at the chat, see what people are saying. The interview by the Process Church magazine is real. Yeah. And I wasn't going to say that I believe the conspiracy theory, but I was just going to say I couldn't believe that the people that people have not found this article about Jimmy Savile. Well, him being interviewed by the Process Church, the people that spout this conspiracy theory. So I just wanted to show this, basically. Yeah. But yeah, and he really was a suspect in the Ripper case. I'll show you why in a minute. I'll just get on. Read it if no one's got anything to say. Right. So this is the article. Look out. This is quite a scary picture of him. It's the natural life of Jimmy Savile as told to John Pine. I assume you would pronounce that. John Payer, sorry. I find it more difficult to destroy morals these days than ever before in my career. Or maybe it's because I'm using the wrong aftershave. Are you moral? I would say that I am highly moral during the day and even highly moral during the evening. But of course we won't say anything about nighttime, because that is when all real wolves like myself rise from the darkness and leap about, causing mayhem left and right. What do you feel about marriage? I think it would be a marvellous thing, marriage, but being the kind of person, I couldn't think of inflicting myself on any poor young lady, because what she would have to put up with would be too much for one human being. Therefore, I wouldn't mind marrying 5 of them, because they could share the load. You must earn a lot of money. Is it important to you? I think the nearer people get to nature, and the less it costs them, and the better it is for all concerned. And the farther away from nature you get, the more complicated it gets. With worldly goods and worldly possessions, and you start chasing to keep up with the Joneses, and you imagine things that aren't there, earn fortunes and don't spend pounds a week actually, because pleasures of the wind, sea, and the sky. How do you feel other people see you? Take you lot, you are regarded as weirdies. You have, I'm sure, aims, but you still are looked at as weirdies because you present a certain picture, rather like I look when I'm working, and they think of me as a weirdie. I've got to stand for it. You've got to stand for it. It helps my cause to be a weirdie. The question is, does it help your cause to be a weirdie? If so, let's move forward weirdie fashion together and to greater heights. What do you feel most strongly about? And it gets hard to read here. Girls, I don't feel they really know that I'm available. When I see lovely young ladies walking, they don't take advantage of me, and I think they're missing a great thing in their lives. This is why, and then here it's just badly scanned in, basically, in their lives. This is why I keep getting my face slapped. You can't read the last paragraph. But this book is really easy to find. You can buy it on eBay, all sorts of places. It was republished in 2022, apparently. That's the cover with the title. And yeah, well, that's just disturbing as hell, isn't it? The stuff he's saying about being a weirdie, and let's move together. Does it like you said, that he sounded like he wanted to work with them, didn't he? Whatever the hell he meant by that. And he didn't really answer their questions at one point. He just went off on his own little weird rant. It's very strange. Yeah, he was very disturbing. Well, that was it, Mark. That's the interview. That's what it says, and you can't read the last chapter on archive.org. It's not very well scanned in. And I'll make sure it's linked in the description so you can all read it for yourself. But he says stuff, yeah, he says a lot of weird stuff. He says he wouldn't want to get married because he wouldn't want to inflict himself on someone. This sort of thing. Yeah, Charlie, the interview with Charlie is in the death issue. So his interview will be in this book as well. Yeah. Yeah. His haircut never changed as well. He just started bleaching it for some reason. Because there was also a theory that he was a rapist called Bible John. Because if you look at the pictures of him when he had brown hair, he looks like the photo fit for Bible John. But they've proved who Bible John was with DNA now, and it wasn't Jimmy Savile, apparently. But yeah. And the other stuff that's interesting is the more stuff about him being involved in the Yorkshire Ripper murders. Because I remember reading all this when Jimmy Savile first died and the scandal first broke. But it was a year after he died, the scandal first broke. They said he was interviewed in the Yorkshire Ripper murders, but this says more information than they originally released. It says Jimmy Savile had a cast made of his teeth by the police, who thought he might have been involved in the murder of Irene Richardson. And this is him with the Yorkshire Ripper when he worked in Broadmoor, because Jimmy Savile had access to Broadmoor. And there's loads and loads of pictures of him with Peter Sutcliffe. They had a weird friendship. Right, and they think he might have been an accomplice. Experts, whatever they mean by experts. And they took a cast of his teeth after marks were found on Irene Richardson's body, which was discovered just a few hundred meters from one of Savile's properties. Basically. And no evidence ever connected him to the crime scene. And they went to great lengths to investigate him, apparently. Yes, and I'll make sure this is in the description. But basically, yeah, they had never said before that they took a cast of his teeth, that they investigated him that seriously. And then from the same newspaper, there's another article here that he could have been part of a satanic abuse ring. And basically, the old account, this came out like right after, when the thing was breaking, the thing at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. A woman said her and some other girls were taken into the basement of Stoke Mandeville Hospital. And they put on black robes and started to chant, "Hail Satan." And she recognised Savile because of his hair. Even though he was wearing a mask, she recognised his voice and his hair. Yes, this is it. She'd been a patient at Stoke Mandeville in 1975 when Savile was a regular visitor. She recalled being led into a room that was filled with candles on the lowest level of the hospital, somewhere that was not regularly used by staff. Several adults were there, including Jimmy Savile, who, like others, was wearing a robe and a mask. She recognised him because of his distinctive voice and the fact his blonde hair was protruding from the side of the mask. He was not the leader, but he was seen as important because of his fame. She was molested, raped, and beaten, and heard words that sounded like Ave Satanas in a Latinized version of Hail Satan being chanted. There was no mention of any other child being there, and she cannot remember how long the attack lasted, but she was left extremely frightened and shaken. Savile was a volunteer porter and fundraiser at the hospital between 1965 and 1988, and had his own quarters there. 5 years after the hospital attack, he abused a second victim during another Black Mass ceremony held at a house in a wealthy London street. This is the one I had not heard about before. The woman was 21 at the time and was made to attend an orgy, which later took on a darker twist. Dr. Sinerson, the director for Clinic of Dissociative Studies in London, said a second victim approached me in 1993. She said she had been lent out as a supposedly consenting prostituted woman at a party in a London house in 1980. The first part of the evening started off with an orgy, but halfway through some of the participants left. Along with the other young women, the victim was shepherded to wait in another room before being brought back to find Savile in a master of ceremonies kind of role, with a group wearing robes and masks. She too heard Latin chanting and instantly recognized Satanist regalia. Although the girl was a young adult, she was above the age of consent. She had suffered a history of sexual abuse and was extremely vulnerable. Both victims contacted Sinerson, who was president of the Institute of Psychotherapy and Disability, while she was involved in a Department of Health funded study into sexual abuse committed during rituals and religious ceremonies. She said both these witnesses did speak to police at the time, but were vulnerable witnesses, and on encountering any surprise or shock, did not dare to give all the details. The police took no action. Dr. Sinerson added, Savile was a huge celebrity in the early 90s, let's not forget, and there was never any action taken against him or any of the others involved. Neither girl knew one another. They lived in different parts of the country and contacted me a year apart, yet their experiences are very similar. Whether Savile was a practicing Satanist or merely enjoyed dressing up to scare his victims even more will perhaps never be known, but he left those two girls mentally scarred. And she passed that on to Operation U-Tree, which is the big operation set up to bust him. Yeah, look at this though, right? Irene Roberts was found in Roundhay Park in, I'll get this up on the screen now. Sorry. Right, this. Right. Sorry, technical difficulties. Right, that is Jimmy Savile's flat. And that is Soldiers Fields, basically. Which is where the bodies were found and the attacks happened. And this is the view from the top, right? So Savile's flat is here. Lakeview Court, and Soldiers Fields is here. So you see how close it is. And Irene Roberts is the one that he was suspected of. Well, there's two women that were attacked in Soldiers Fields. The first one is Marcella Claxton. She survived. He picked her up in his car, took her to this place, Soldiers Fields, and there was some public toilets there that were locked. And basically, when they got out of the car and found the toilets were locked and they crouched down to pee outside, he attacked them with a hammer. And this woman, how many times was she hit? So I'm just trying to look at it. 8 or 9 blows to the head with a ball-peen hammer. And he left her, but she was still alive. She didn't die. But this is Irene Richardson. This woman did die. She was hit so hard with the hammer that the part of her skull went 4 inches into her brain. And if I scroll down any further, you'll see a picture of her body, so I won't. But he hung around afterwards and he covered her body over with her coat. She had thigh-high boots on that he covered her over with. And he mutilated her body with a Stanley knife after he beat her head in with the hammer. Really, really awful murders. But this was basically, both those attacks happened right outside Jimmy Savile's flat in Roundhay Park in Leeds. Yes. Yeah, he died in it. Jimmy Savile died in that flat, apparently, yeah. I read. Yeah, very disturbing eyes, didn't he? Yeah, apparently I heard, I've never been able to verify if it was true. I don't know how the hell you would, but they say that he had an illness when he was first born, a rare fever where his eyes were stuck open for about 2 weeks. And that's why his eyes were so weird. Yeah. Obviously, that's disturbing. And the sexual assault ring, the fact that there's another woman that claims to, but also I thought, because the first account of that happening at the Alderhay Hospital came out right when the scandal broke. So could the other woman have read that in the newspapers and either had a false memory or just been making shit up? Who knows? That's the other thing. And also, I think they dressed up in the robes just to scare the kids more as well. I don't think that they did it because there really was any sort of ritual going on. It's just a horrible thing that they do. And also to make the children's accounts sound less believable if they do try and tell anyone what's happened. You know, just to make the people's accounts sound less, yeah. Yeah, it is just really very strange. There's a TV drama starting tomorrow night about the Yorkshire Ripper. So, yeah. Interesting time to do it. Yeah, and that's it. And I wasn't able to, I didn't get stuff together about Peter Tobin, but Peter Tobin's a very weird serial killer. He was only convicted of killing about 3 women, I think, but they could have got him for many more, probably. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I should have got a picture of what the Process Church wore, yeah, because they did have the big, extravagant black robes, didn't they? Yeah. It's the thing he says about we should work together. Yeah. What is it? I've got... Take you lot, you are regarded as weirdies. You have, I'm sure, aims, but you are looked at as weirdies because you present a certain picture, rather like I look when I'm working, and they think of me as a weirdie. I've got to stand for it. You've got to stand for it. It helps my cause to be a weirdie. The question is, does it help your cause to be a weirdie? If so, let's move forward weirdie fashion together, then, to greater heights. What the hell did that mean? Yeah, so that just sounds disturbing, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, he did entertain Charles at that cottage, yeah, up in the Highlands. And they want to knock it down for obvious reasons. It's just getting graffitied and vandalised and all that. But there's mountaineers who want to preserve it because before Jimmy Savile had it, it's a historic cottage. Some historic mountaineer also owned it, so it's historic in a way. So there's people who don't want it knocked down as well. So that's a weird situation. Oh, and someone said in the chat, yeah, his penthouse actually got ripped down even because it was right on the top. They actually built a new flat. They ripped it down and built a slightly larger flat in its place. Apparently, yeah. So that is actually gone now. The flat isn't there anymore. The new owners ripped it down and put up another steel framed flat. Yeah, well, looking at stuff about the Yorkshire Ripper as well. There's always been loads of theories about the Yorkshire Ripper and that he wasn't the only one doing the murders and that he was just a copycat murderer. And when they caught him, they just wanted to close the book so they didn't look any further, but there was actually more people involved. But yeah, nothing that's ever you can't no one's ever been able to substantiate who the hell the other guy is, and why there haven't been any more similar murders since they caught Peter Sutcliffe, basically. Yeah, but he entertained Prince Charles at that bloody Highland cottage, didn't he? And he got to go to Chequers, which is like a private house that the prime ministers get to use while they're in number 10 sort of thing. And Margaret Thatcher used to let him go to Chequers every year at Christmas to spend Christmas with them. So people, yeah, well, that obviously makes everyone say, well, was he some kind of military intelligence dude or whatever, you know? Was he like whatever Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were doing? Sort of some kind of honeypot to get people to do, you know, sexually perverted stuff so they could blackmail them about it later or whatever. It is disturbing. And like I say, the police said they've never been able to prove anything about him having accomplices, but he must have had. It's ridiculous that they can't find anything to show, you know, that he worked with other people. Let's look at it again, because, yeah, it's very short, but just some of the bits he says are just so disturbing. Yeah, marriage. How do you feel about marriage? I think it would be a marvellous thing, marriage, but being a kind of person, I couldn't think of inflicting myself on any poor young lady, because what she would have to put up with would be too much for one human being. Therefore, I wouldn't mind marrying 5 of them because they could share the load. Like, what does he mean by that as well? And it's frustrating you can't read this last paragraph because I've scrolled right down. You can't read the last paragraph because he says something. Oh my God, that guy looks exactly like Julian Assange. I'd never noticed that. Bloody hell. Sorry, here. Isn't that weird? I thought that was Julian Assange, but it can't be. This is from the 60s. There, right. This last paragraph here, you can't bloody read it because it's been like badly scanned in or something. But he says something about, I keep getting my face slapped. And he wants to get back to nature. More stuff about getting back to nature. And something about next Thursday. What was he going to do next Thursday? I shudder to think. Definitely going to get a copy of that book now so I can read it. And I'll definitely scan a better version of it. So there is a better version of it on the internet for people to read. Yeah. Yeah, well, he was a very powerful guy as well. It's unclear how he had so much power. This is why everyone speculates he must have worked for military intelligence or something, because he was given the keys to Broadmoor. He was given his own office in Alderhay Hospital. He was just allowed to do whatever he wanted, basically. And apparently, loads of people knew. Everyone bloody knew about him, but no one could do anything. Well, I don't think anything was ever proven about them, but there's creepy looking episodes of Jim Will Fix It where Gary Glitter appears, and yeah, disturbing stuff. Yeah, well, I don't know, if they would have heard of him, because he was more of a TV presenter, wasn't he? But he was so famous. Like, we've heard of their most famous TV presenters. You'd think they must have heard something about him. Yeah, it's Ted Heath, isn't it? Ted Heath is the one that's supposed to be rumoured. But I looked into the guy that claimed that. When I researched that, when I looked into him, he's been exposed to be a total con artist and full of shit. And just because he had a really posh accent, he sounded legit. Everyone believed him. But actually, he was just absolutely full of shit. Yeah. Yeah, and Rolf Harris. Rolf Harris is terrifying as well. They did a documentary about Rolf Harris. I never realised quite how bad he was. He was almost as bad as Savile. And I say almost as bad because he didn't seem to get access to hospitals and go and have, Christmas with the Prime Minister and shit, but he was just as bad. Like, as soon as he was alone in a room with a young woman, he just started fondling them and, just got away with it for years, because he really did. Because Jimmy Savile was creepy as hell, so it's weird that he got away with it for so long. This is why so many people speculate that he had, people covering up for him or whatever. And but Rolf Harris came across as a really nice guy. If a girl had accused him, she wouldn't have been believed. That's the scary thing about Rolf Harris. But apparently behind the scenes, he was disturbing as hell. Because when I was a kid, he used to present kids' TV shows. He used to draw cartoon characters, because he's a really good artist, isn't he? He used to draw the cartoon characters before, and you had to guess what cartoon character it was before they played you the Tiny Toons cartoon sort of thing. And he did a thing called that was Rolf's Cartoon Time, obviously. And then he did an art show as well for kids in the 80s. And then he presented a thing called Animal Hospital, where he was always holding sick kittens and stuff like that. So he was just like seen as a really lovable, nice guy. And then it came out. Wow. Disturbing as hell. And the documentary, I don't know if it's still up on ITV On Demand, but if you're in the UK, you should better watch that on ITV On Demand. That's really crazy. Yeah, that's it. Can you guess what it is yet? Gives the song Two Little Boys a whole new fucking darker meaning as well, don't it? But yeah, you do have to wonder how much all these men behind the scenes, did they know each other and did they work together? Probably. And who was covering up for these people, you know what I mean? Why did they get away with it? It doesn't seem right, does it? That they did it so blatantly. Yes, and the class, I've seen conspiracy theories about that, the Dunblane mass shooter. Yeah. Because that's the crime that caused all our gun laws to get much stricter as well. On handguns, even though he used a shotgun, which is weird. Yeah. But that is, there's lots of, the suggestions there was some kind of cover-up going on, wasn't it? Yeah. And that class in particular, I remember reading a theory about that. But, I don't want to restate these things because it's all unsubstantiated and it's probably bullshit, but yeah. Oh, what? A photo of Savile in the US wearing a white coat with the title of Elvis's latest film. Elvis is there holding his hair as if he couldn't believe it. Bloody hell. Well, that's weird. He did present a lot of like pop shows as well because he was a DJ. That was what he initially did. He spun records in nightclubs and he was a radio DJ. And then he got his jobs were always presenting usually music shows until the 80s. Or I think Jim Will Fix It started in the late 70s actually. When he had this show where the idea was you wrote in saying what you wish to do, what your dream was, and children wrote in, and he fixed it for you to do it. Basically, yeah. A girl from my school was on it. She wanted to be an air stewardess, and he fixed it for her to be an air stewardess for the day. Yeah. He had semi-automatic handguns. I thought at the time they said he used a shotgun. I'm from England as well, remember? So I remember what they were actually reporting on the news. Yeah. At the time they were saying he had a shotgun, I'm pretty sure, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I bet they did. There's photos of him. There's photos of him standing with the Beatles and all that, isn't there? Yeah. Well, no one liked him, apparently. Everyone found him creepy. Yeah, so this is like the great mystery of what the fuck was going on. Why was he allowed to carry on, you know? It's just like, yeah, people think he was there for a reason, basically. Because, yeah, he blatantly said it. I mean, listen to the tone of that interview, the stuff he's saying. It's like, you know, he didn't give a shit, did he? He was totally open about what he was. Where's he buried? Oh, I'm not sure exactly, but I've seen pictures of his grave. Yeah, he is buried somewhere. And people go and vandalise his grave. Yeah. Yeah. Well, all he said was he's involved in all kinds of seediness. That was what he said. There's a footage of him, and they weren't allowed to go on the TV again. They were never interviewed again. But that was actually they weren't allowed to go on the TV again after they said they swore basically on a show. I don't know if that was a radio interview where he said that. But yeah. He said, what about Jimmy Savile? He's involved. I've heard he's involved in all kinds of seediness. That was what he said. What do you mean they refused to invite him in? He was travelling back from a gig with the Fabs. Well, they loathed him. Yeah, definitely. Burning in hell. Down there with his friend Margaret Thatcher. He used to have him over for Christmas dinner at Checkers every year. Exactly, that's what I think it was. I think it was like whatever the hell Jeffrey Epstein was doing, you know, and it's put for political blackmail reasons or whatever. And even entertainers as well. They need some entertainers in their pocket so they can get them to, you know, spout whatever narrative they want or stop them from talking about whatever they want to talk about, you know. Say, oh, well, if you keep drawing attention to this situation, would expose these terrible things you did, you know. So it's kind of like what's happening to Russell Brand now, isn't it? Is he pissed off? He was the first to use turntables in a dancehall context in the early 50s. Yeah, I think it was his brother owned the clubs, and so I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Who knows? All right, although he wouldn't make them a cup of tea. All right, yeah. Well, they probably were fucking lucky not to go in to wherever. Yeah. What would he have done to them if they had gone in? He was always creepy as hell. On his show, he was always wearing like running shorts, you know, like really short shorts or stuff with elasticated waists. You know, it's like, oh god, yeah. So what else to say about him? Really? Because there's so much to say about Jimmy Savile, and it's just like there's after the Yorkshire Rippers died as well. I think that's probably why they released more information on that. But yeah, what are they doing to investigate links he had to other people? I wonder if there is any kind of link between him and Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard he was a miner as well for a little while. Not for very long though, because right from the 60s he's a DJ, and like I say, getting interviewed by the Process Church, apparently. So he must have been quite famous. Yeah. Yeah, well, this is what I've wondered. And Epstein, is there any Epstein he ever met? Any evidence he ever met Epstein? And the Maxwell family, because their dad as well was into a lot of stuff. There's a woman called Kathy Morgan who's done the most to research the MK Ultra type experiments that went on in the UK, and the stuff she's actually, you know, managed to get together. And she found out a load of weird stuff about Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, Robert Maxwell. He funded loads of research into children's psychology, basically. Yeah, like weird stuff like that. You know, like what were they doing? Well, he knew everyone. He was very well connected. I mean, there's pictures of him shaking hands with all sorts of people, isn't there? And thanking him like Esther Ranson. Like, there's him giving a huge donation to Childline, which is like the helpline set up to help abuse victims or children that were victims of violence or sexual abuse or whatever. Is that they set up Childline to try and find the victims who were talking of some big sexual abuse ring. But that's probably all unsubstantiated shit as well, so we can't know that, can we? Yeah, there was there's lots of weird stuff of him talking about violence and things that went on in clubs and all this sort of shit. Yeah, he was a violent bloke. Horrible. And like, why was he allowed all over children's television and that? There's a bloody children's book about stranger danger with him on the cover. Jimmy Savile's stories of book about stranger danger. What the hell were they thinking using him for this? And Princess Diana and Prince Charles, apparently they used him as like a mediator between Charles and Diana. And it's like, why the hell would you use Jimmy Savile for that? He was never even married. What would he know about marriage guidance or whatever? Why would you hire Jimmy Savile to do that? And I can't imagine Princess Diana liked him. But this is the thing. Is the fact he got away with it his whole life, and he seems to be linked to so many other people that makes me think he was a big deal, and that he was being covered up for whatever reason he had a license to do it. Because look how long Epstein, how many times he got sweetheart deals and all that. It was only because the whole world went nuts and like people couldn't, because the internet didn't exist as well when Savile was alive, or in the way it does now. Things were different back then. It's like it's harder now. Well, it's easier now, isn't it, to like expose someone and put pressure on the government to act because like so many people are talking about it or whatever. But back then it was harder. Yeah. Wrestling's well, like Sean Atwood, the channel Sean Atwood has done a really good long documentary about him that goes into stuff that the Netflix documentaries wouldn't probably cover, and all that sort of thing, and shows a lot of footage of stuff he did on Top of the Pops that the BBC probably wishes doesn't exist now, and all that kind of thing. Yeah. Just come back to the bouncing check. That's weird, isn't it? Yeah. And well, he had loads of different passports, didn't he? Apparently, he had passports for 3 different countries and all that. Yeah, I've seen that. It's in the Sean Atwood documentary. Yeah, the girl, he's standing in a crowd of girls, and the way she screams and jumps, I don't think he just pinched her ass. Basically, I think he actually had his hand up her skirt, and and there's footage of it, and it's in the Sean Atwood documentary, and because Top of the Pops, I'm pretty sure was filmed live, so like yeah, they couldn't like easily cut out shit like that when he did stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, well they say that as well. There was a load of them. Cyril Smith as well. There was a guy, a Tory MP called Cyril Smith. They reckon he was as well. Yeah. This the Stoke Mandeville Hospital where he had the office. He had an office, and he volunteered as a porter there from the 60s. It was in the article that I read. What is it? Oh, sorry, just let me find it again. Right, she'd been a patient at the Stoke Mandeville in 1975 when Savile was a regular visitor. Oh, where does it say? Sorry, it does say with the bloody years that he was a volunteer. So I read it out, didn't I? Savile was a volunteer porter and fundraiser at the hospital between 1965 and 1988 and had his own quarters there. Yeah, so it's the Stoke Mandeville Hospital, yeah. Between 1965. Yeah, he was horrible. Yeah, he was a huge, big, fat guy, weren't he? Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, yeah. Was he a liberal? Because I thought he's one that bloody Thatcher covered for. But they had to cover for all of them, didn't they? No matter what party they were from. Yeah. Yeah, well, there's not really a lot more to say about this. Just, yeah, it's disturbing how close to Savile's flat a couple of the Yorkshire Ripper attacks happened. And just that was the point I wanted to make as well. That occurred to me because the first girl, the woman didn't die. And like the next one, he attacks her more thoroughly. And yes, and in his confession as well, he says about he didn't have any blood on him when he got back into his car. And it made me think, if he knew Savile, could he have gone to his flat after the murder to change his clothes or to clean up after, the murder, if they did know each other? Because it is so bloody close. And well, Sutcliffe was in a car as well, and at the time, no one was even looking for his car, so he didn't have to like get his car out of the area. He could have just driven, to Savile's flat, couldn't he? Yeah, just very weird stuff. And like I say, there's a new documentary about the Yorkshire Ripper just about to start. Anyway, no, it's not a documentary; it's a drama series. Sorry. So yeah, that'll be interesting because it's another disturbing case for how long he was at large, because he was at large from the early 70s to 1981. I think they finally caught him, or 1980. It's like more than 6 or 7 years. Yeah. Yeah, they said, and there was another guy as well. There's been another lord who's died, so they've revealed that he was another one that the Krays were blackmailing. Whether he was for young boys or if it was just because he was gay, because at the time that would have ruined a politician's career, wouldn't it? But there's another lord, and they've released his name now because he's dead. Yeah, he murdered. Well, there's like I say, I was looking. There was a blog I found where the guys. I was gonna show. Well, I could show some stuff from it. The toilets they were found by. A photo of the toilets they were found by. See if I can find it quickly. Yeah, because yeah, this blog it's interesting and very compelling, the theory he puts out, but he basically says there's this other guy who he's sure was like the real Ripper, and that Peter Sutcliffe only did 3 of the murders, and that all the other ones were this other guy, basically. But on his blog, he's collected loads of old newspaper articles and stuff, so it was useful for that. Right, that's it. I've missed the one of her body, I think. This tab. Yeah, this is a set of toilets beside the murder scene. This is where they were. And the other woman, Claxton, was nearby as well. This toilet. Yeah, I'll put this link in the description. I don't believe his theory about this other guy, though, because there's things he claims, like he claims this guy faked a Geordie accent to do the tapes. Because yeah, I don't know how much the Americans know about the Yorkshire Ripper case. Do you know that they got tapes claiming to be from the Yorkshire Ripper and letters taunting them? The police got tapes, and they've now actually proved who sent them. They've got his DNA from the stamp on the letter, and they know who he is, and he was in prison. And the guy who was claiming that he knew another guy that was possibly the Yorkshire Ripper was saying he had faked a Geordie accent to do the tapes, but it wasn't him. So that sort of makes his theory fall flat. But they say, yeah, they were found by some toilets. If we go back to this tab, and I'll try and zoom in. You can see that Soldiers Field's changing rooms east comes up. Right, makes me think, was this where the toilets were originally, and they've been replaced with these changing rooms? Sorry, now I've got to find the right tab again. Right, that tab. That does look like a similar site, doesn't it? And those changing rooms are right by where the road meets Savile's flats, basically. If that is where the toilets were. So I might as well end this and go for an after stream. And I want to go and make myself a cup of tea, and I'll come back and do a little after stream. And I'll talk to you about the Keith Richards stuff. Yeah, well, yeah. Before I finish it, I'll let you know for next week. I got the police files back for a bust of Keith Richards and Anita Pallenberg and some other prince guy who was a prince who was staying at their house at the time. They lived at a house that I think you pronounce it Chine Walk, a place in Chelsea in London where loads and loads of famous people have lived, and they got busted there. And yeah, I've got the paperwork for that basically. Yeah, so I was going to talk about that next week, a bit more lighthearted than the Yorkshire Ripper and Jimmy Savile. Difficult stuff to talk about. It was, he was at large for so long as well. It must have been terrifying for the women that lived in that area, because I don't like having to walk home late at night, but if I can have to sometimes, you know what I mean. And if you're poor, that's a harsh reality. Sometimes you have to walk home at night, and if a man like that was at large, you'd just be terrified, wouldn't you? It's awful. But for one thing I noticed as well, a lot of the ones that I read about his victims, they did get in a car with him and walk and go to a second location with him. I would never get in a stranger's car late at night. Shit like that. One of the articles did say it's by the changing rooms. Yeah, because in the current Google Photos thing, with the current Google Maps of the area now, it's changing rooms. But yeah, if you look, let me try and go back to it. It does show them as being, when I scan over it. Come on, load picture, you bastard. Sorry, the picture won't load, so there's no point me switching to it. Switch to it, but the picture's not bloody loading. Right, well that's the picture of the toilets at the time, what it looked like in 1976. Right, and if I switch back to this tab, there, see, that does look like there's trees around it. That does look like it could be the building, doesn't it? If we go back to that, see, it does look like the same area, doesn't it? And that is right up by Jimmy Savile's flat. Disturbing, yeah. Yeah, oh god, the Isle of Wight slasher, fucking hell. We'll get a ripper, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, walk in the middle of the road and never comply, yeah. That's it, never go. Well, bloody hell, I've watched enough true crime to know, never go to the second location, never get in the car. Stand and scream, let him kill you there. I would rather die in the street and be killed quickly than be taken to the second location, to be honest, right? Yeah, right, I would fucking fight before I'd get in the car. Yeah, very worrying. But yeah, no, most of the stabbings that happen on the Isle of Wight happen inside houses, and it's some kind of like dispute between people. We don't get many random stabbings on the Isle of Wight, luckily. Luckily, this doesn't happen a lot in the country, in any part of the world, hopefully. Well, that's the scary thing as well. They say there's how many active serial killers are there in the world at one time that they don't know about. Because, yeah, Peter Sutcliffe was a lorry driver as well. I mistakenly said on another stream that he worked in a factory. He didn't. He was a lorry driver. So that's another thing. So did he have other victims in other parts of the country completely if he was a lorry driver that they don't know about? But I find the theory intriguing that he wasn't the only one, that he was just a copycat killer. And because they caught him, they didn't look for anyone else. And maybe the other people just sort of took it as lucky and stopped leaving the bodies in such an obvious place, because that's the only thing. They just stopped hiding they started hiding the bodies better, so people didn't find the bodies after Sutcliffe got caught. And whoever these crazy people were, or this other guy was just taking advantage of the fact that there was a copycat who was sloppy and who was going to get caught, basically. Yeah, there's a couple of other murders, isn't there? Yeah, well, there was a book. But last night when I was researching this stream, I found on Wikipedia, of all places, there is an article that's been written about a few of the murders that he got linked to, because they made a documentary out of this book because the book is so popular. But they've actually disproved a few with DNA now. DNA has actually proved who really did these murders, and it wasn't the Yorkshire Ripper. I know the main one that he's thought of to have been suspected of, he didn't do. They've proved was someone else's. They've proved with DNA it was someone else. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, but there's like I say, a few murders people have tried to link him to, but yeah, quite a few they've eliminated him because they found DNA of someone else, basically. But they found out who the Ripper hoaxer was as well, because he's in prison. They caught him. Yeah, that's it. Well, there's this the first woman who was attacked in Soldiers Fields, Marcella Claxton. She wasn't even linked to the Ripper case until Irene Richardson got killed in the same place. Then they investigated it as possibly being the Ripper. But yeah, they didn't. But in fairness, she wasn't slashed up though. He left her alive. He didn't slash her up. And that was that's why they called him the Ripper. You know, so yeah, because after he'd knocked you senseless, he slashed you up. Horrible. Yeah. Yeah, it's look, well, I found it. It's just disturbing once you know who he was. Once you know who he was, the things he says, it is very disturbing. And the thing he says about let's go forth and work together. What did he mean by that? Weirdies. Yeah, well, it's because it's like how did he get away with it so long? Why did he have so many famous friends? Why did Margaret Thatcher have him at Chequers every year she was in power as prime minister? Why did he get to? Why did Prince Charles go and stay at his cottage before he was king? Now he's our fucking king. He went and stayed at Savile's cottage up in the Highlands. Apparently, it's just disturbing, isn't it? So much, but the police say we've never been able to prove anything. Of course, they fucking haven't. Because he probably, if he was collecting blackmail material on people, he probably didn't store it himself, did he? He had a handler or whatever that he gave it to. So they're never going to find Jimmy Savile's stash of blackmail material because he wasn't the one storing it. He'd have just been reporting it back to someone else, wouldn't he? But yeah, that's my theory on what he was fucking doing. He was actually given a license to do it so he could get other people entrapped and, you know, get evidence that they were doing whatever they shouldn't have been doing. Oh, do you mean the Yorkshire Ripper? Yeah, because there's a lot of people who said they couldn't believe it. Yeah, people that knew him. He said there's a friend of his who said he was really, really nice and he'd known him since school. Like if you ever needed help with anything, he'd help you, and if you needed a loan and he had the money, he'd give it to you, and that he was a really, really nice bloke. Yeah. So it is really, really bizarre. But I've also heard well, I was reading that crazy blog I was talking about last night, where there is a guy saying that he knows who the other Ripper was, basically the real Ripper, and that the Peter Sutcliffe was only a copycat, and he only killed 3 of the women. I can't remember where I was going with that now. Where was I going? Oh, I've forgotten. Sorry. Information overload. You hear all this shit, and most of it's probably not. But I'll make sure this guy's blog is linked back down below. Can't scroll around in this page that I've got because otherwise I'll accidentally show her body. But it's the picture's from quite far away anyway. You can't see anything. It's not like an autopsy photo, and she's been covered with the coat and that. Yeah, but. Yeah, and there was people, impressionists, did impressions of him for years. They all stopped doing it after the Savile scandal broke. Yeah, he was always spoofed, and yeah, there was a spitting image puppet of him, and the Christmas of the year he died, they did a load of shows in tribute to him, like talking about his career and all that. and the head of the BBC actually repressed the scandal coming out because it would ruin the Christmas lineup, basically, and he had to step down after it all came out. It's like, oh my god, really disturbing that they sat on it just so it wouldn't ruin the Christmas bloody programming, basically, because they'd have to reprogram everything for Christmas because all the Christmas specials had something to do with bloody Savile. Yeah. Right, well, I've been going for an hour now, so I'm going to stop for a minute. I've got to go make myself a cup of tea, but I'll come back and do an after show. Anyway, but yeah, thanks for watching. I'll edit this down, and so all the stupid gaps will be edited out. Yeah, and on the show, it's a shame I couldn't find a better fucking print of the interview because it's really frustrating. I can't read that last paragraph. Yeah. Yes, yeah, and what it is as well, like loads of people have protested about that statue. On the after stream, I'll find a picture of that statue. It's really disturbing. It's a Greek god holding up a naked child, naked boy. And yeah, and it was later exposed he abused his daughter or something like that, the artist that made it. And yet they still don't take it down. It's still there. It's like, oh my god. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and there was a woman who, while he was alive, was claiming to be his daughter, and looking at pictures of her, she does look like him. Says the mother had a one-night stand with him. But then after the scandal came out, suddenly she went quiet. You don't hear much from her anymore. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he'll ever get a statue or anything like that. Or if he did get a statue before the scandal broke. I know his gravestone kept getting vandalised. I think they removed his gravestone in the end. His grave isn't marked anymore because people just kept writing over his grave. Yeah, I remember hearing. Yeah, they took his gravestone away because people just kept writing "monster" across it and all that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'll end this now because I've gone over an hour, and I'll be back. Give me 5 minutes. Thanks for coming, everyone. Anyway, and I'll see you in a minute if you're hanging around.